Hello, my name's Cadet Armand Nassine.
I'm Cadet Avalon Rosenberger.
I'm Cadet Parker Lord.
And this is our presentation on Medea.
We're going to be looking at the cultural significance of what occurs after Jason breaks an oath to Medea. In this case, the oath is their marital oath and the sanctity that oath holds.
Awesome.
Medea's reaction to her cultural situation is the youth of her motherhood and her role in that to harm Jason.
Medea, in addition, also uses the cultural norm of family and family values to aid her in her quest and her mission to harm Jason and the people of Corinth.
And her response to breaking that oath shows that she's aware of that parental instinct. And it's the reason that her marriage to Jason is no longer valid. And we see through her actions later that Jason actually acts more like a mother than she does. A mother being willing to do anything to protect her children. And the father's typical role would be a breadwinner. We don't see Medea acting as a breadwinner per se, but we see Jason, his reasoning for the divorce in the first place was to give his children a better future. So in that way, we kind of see these traditional gender roles inverted as we did in Antigone, which is pretty interesting. We see this when Medea has a conversation with Creon in the beginning about whether she should remain in Corinth.
Allow me to remain this one day, and to complete my plans for exile, and how I may provide for my children, since their father does not care to do so. Have pity on them. You too are a parent. It would be natural for you to show kindness toward them. I do not care if I myself go into exile. It is their experience of misfortune I weep for.
The important words to listen to here are, since their father does not care to do so, you too are a parent, and it would be natural for you. This shows that they are both extremely aware of their expectations as a parent to care and show kindness towards their children and to ultimately just have their best interests in mind, right? She also says, it is their experience of misfortune I weep for. Medea manipulates Creon by using this idea that she cares about her children. You too are a parent. She is aware that there is a cultural norm around her protecting her own children. Right? This natural idea indicates that the cultural norms are in place that support caring about children innately. It should be part of who you are as a mother. Clearly, Medea doesn't experience misfortune for killing her children, but she is aware of this cultural norm and uses this to manipulate Jason.
In this scene, Medea and Jason are discussing Jason's breaking of their marital oath. Medea is enraged by the fact that Jason has broken the sanctity of their oath and has decided to marry another woman, Creon's daughter, Creusa. Jason, however, tries to validate the reasons for why he left Medea in the following conversation.
The magical power of an oath has gone, and shame is no more to be found in wide Hellas. She has taken wing to the heaven. You have no father's home in which to find shelter from woe, unhappy woman, and another, a princess, greater match than yourself, holds sway in the house.
Still, even after this, I have not failed my loved ones, but have come here in your interests, woman, so that you might not go into exile with your children penniless or in need of anything. Exile brings many hardships with it. Even if you hate me, I could never bear you ill will. It was not the point that seems to irk you, that I was weary of your bed and smitten with desire for a new bride, nor was I eager to rival others in the number of my children. We have enough already, and I make no complaint. But my purpose was that we should live well, which is the main thing, and not be in want, knowing that everyone goes out of his way to avoid a penniless friend. I wanted to raise the children in a manner befitting to my house, to beget brothers to the children born from you, and to put them in the same footing with them, so that by drawing the family into one I might prosper. For your part, what need have you of any more children? For me, it is advantageous to use future children to benefit those already born. Was this a bad plan? Not even you would say so if you were not galled by the matter of sex. But you women are so far gone in folly that if all is well in bed, you think you have everything, while if some misfortune in that domain occurs, you regard as hateful your best and truest interests. Mortals ought to beget children in some other source, and there should be no female sex. Then mankind would have no trouble.
As we see from this scene, Medea clearly asserts that an oath is important to Greek culture, as we've already seen in similar Greek plays, such as Antigone. Jason, however, uses the fact that he loves his children to validate the reasons why he broke his oath to Medea. It's important that he notes that children are a main reason for this. He says that he wanted to raise children in a manner befitting his house, and to beget brothers to the children born from Medea, in order so that he could make sure that his children were on the same foot as his children born from Creusa. The reason that he is doing all of this, marrying Creusa, establishing himself in a new kingdom, is so that Medea, will not go into exile with her children, and that they will not be in need of anything. If this shows nothing at all, it shows that Jason at least is a caring father who wants to provide financially for his children and for Medea. Further, this scene shows the importance of the cultural value of family in Greek society. If we use Medea as a reference for Greek culture and use the play and what the characters are talking about as ways to look at Greek culture itself, then we can see from this conversation between Medea and Jason that Jason, and his interest in his children and keeping them economically fulfilled and also out of exile, shows that paternal instinct and paternal care was a part of Greek society, and that establishes it as a cultural norm that Medea will later use to harm Jason.
In this scene, Medea ponders before committing filicide.
Friends, my resolve is fixed on the deed. To kill my children with all speed, and to free from this land, I must not, by lingering, deliver my children for a murder to a less kindly hand. They must die at all events, and since they must, I who gave them birth shall kill them. Come, put on your armor, my heart. Why do I put off doing the terrible deed that must be done? Come, luckless hand, take the sword, take it and go to your life's miserable goal. Do not weaken, do not remember that you love the children, that you gave them life. Instead, for this brief day, forget them, and mourn hereafter, for even if you kill them, they were dear to you. Oh, what an unhappy woman I am.
In this scene, there are many things that indicate Medea's remorse at the murder of her children. She discusses, put on your armor, my heart. That implies, obviously, that her heart needs the armor, that if she does this task without putting on her heart's armor, that she shall be injured. She mentions that she must be the one to do it, implying that she knows that she is the mother, and if it is going to be anyone to have to kill her children, it should be the mother.
Which is pretty interesting because one should also make the argument that if you are a mother and you truly do care about your children, this would be out of the question. This would be inconceivable to murder your own children. And I think it's hard to imagine that Jason would have done the same thing. So again, we see this kind of inversion of the gender roles where the father cares more about his children than the mother.
However, it is still very clear through her diction that she is very aware of herself and her role as the mother. So she knows exactly what she is doing and that she shouldn't be doing it, which is why she is such an unhappy woman.
Yes, which means what we saw earlier with the manipulation of Jason and appealing to his love for his own children was very, very intentional.
In the last scene, we are choosing to analyze the chorus and Jason discuss Medea's act of killing her children.
Hard-hearted wretch you are, it seems, a stone or piece of iron. You mean to kill the children you gave birth to with a fate your own hand deals out. One woman, only one, of all that have been, have I heard of, who put her hand to her own children. Ino, driven mad by the gods, when Hera sent her forth from the house to wander in madness. The unhappy woman fell into the sea, impiously murdering her sons. Stepping over the sea's edge, she perished with her 2 children. What further horror is now impossible, O womankind in marriage fraught with pain? How many are the troubles you have already wrought for mortal men?
But it is not so much about her that I am concerned as about the children. She will be punished by those she has wronged, but I have come to save the lives of my children, that no harm may come to them from the next of kin, avenging on them their mother's impious crime.
This scene really seems to be the cornerstone of our argument here. The chorus and the remark, one woman, only one, of all that have been, have I heard of who put her hand to her own children, really drives home the importance of the fact that Medea is the odd one out in her culture for killing her own children. The fact that the chorus mentions this as well represents Greek society and the Greek people of Corinth. So the fact that they say this is also important because the Greek culture and people are pointing out that Medea is an outlier within the other members of their society. It is also of importance that both the chorus and Jason use the word impious to describe Medea's murder of her children. Impious in this context, while it's usually tied to religion, we take to mean as a deviation from the cultural norms. In addition, the fact that Jason is supporting what the chorus is saying by calling Medea's crime their mother's impious crime, he's further emphasizing the fact that Medea killing her children was out of the cultural norm of how mothers were supposed to care for their children and their next of kin. Following our presentation, we're also going to be having a discussion about some of the questions that we still have as readers and as viewers of the play about why Medea would use her motherhood to assert power over Jason. So one of the questions I have for you guys is, do you think that Medea accepts a traditionally feminine or masculine role by committing filicide and killing her children?
Right, so we usually see violence as a traditionally a male characteristic, and then we also see Jason show this compassionate and caring side to him, even though he, I guess, doesn't act completely kind towards Medea, but he cares for his children more than Jason. So I think it was pretty intentional to sort of reverse those and kind of challenge those traditional gender norms, but at the same time we see kind of a villainization of women, which is not uncommon in Greek literature. So for the time, I think we see elements of both male and female characteristics in both Jason and Medea. Do you have any thoughts?
I would argue that the murder of the children in specific is more of a feminine action on the part of Medea than a male action. There's a couple reasons for this. The first is that they are children. They're not warriors.
Right.
So the ideal of masculine battle is you have a one-on-one fair fight. Both men are armed at top fighting condition, which obviously this is not a situation which that is. The second is the goal of the murder. So Medea's goal isn't to kill the children. She doesn't want to kill the children. She makes that very clear. However, the killing of the children is a very manipulative act. She's doing it to harm Jason, which manipulation is more of a feminine trait.
That's really interesting. So do you think almost in a way that the fact that she's depicted like as someone who is manipulating Jason as a villain, do you think that's a criticism of femininity and motherhood in general? Because she's almost representative of a toxic mother, like an anti-mother in a sense.
Right.
She does the ultimate act of what motherhood is supposed to support and protect, which is her children, and she kills them.
And
she basically quashes that.
We saw evidence of what society expected of her too. So yeah, I think that's interesting.
And I think the whole play, she is very much portrayed as a villain, and I think that is a vilification of women in general. It shows that stereotype of women being the ones who are manipulative, who use poison, all of those harmful stereotypes, and it is most certainly a critical criticization of Medea and of women in general.
Right.
What do we think about Creusa then? Because she's almost used as a pawn in this play to achieve Jason's means. Jason, you could say, manipulates Creon and Creon's daughter Creusa in order to gain economic support and financial stability for his family. So she ends up dying at the end of the play as well. So she doesn't really have power or any autonomy over her life. So what do you think about that in terms of our conversation about womanhood and femininity?
Yeah, she's, I guess a pretty traditional, I don't know, do you want to use the word submissive? Is that?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, we could use the word submissive, but again, the wealth didn't come through her, it came through her family.
Okay.
So I don't even, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that she represented wealth or opportunity. It would be more of her family. I think that was pretty clear in the beginning.
She is certainly definitely a powerless character. She doesn't really have a whole lot of control over the happenings in the plot. She's honestly really a tool that Jason uses for his own gain, and he talks about that in one of the quotes that we talked about earlier. He does this for the good of his family. And he talks about how he did it for Medea and his kids, but then once Medea started being angry about it, now it's not for her anymore. Now it's just for the kids. So Caruso is definitely a tool to get to that end.
Right.
So I think, in a sense, that also continues to support that idea that women are almost, I think it's like a toxic view of women. They have no autonomy, or when they do have autonomy, if we agree upon the fact that Medea has some autonomy over her actions, that they're either used for violent means or no means at all, or to support the male character's means and his motives and ambitions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a really interesting point that this play brings up. But kind of adding on to that, do you think that Medea has a certain level of autonomy? I mean, she's killing her children in order to harm Jason, so you could argue that maybe she does in that sense. But at the same time, is her hatred of Jason and her hatred of the fact that he broke an oath controlling her?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I think typically we would see that a married woman is a controlled woman, and maybe the marriage was controlling her to not act out in a way, but at the same time, that rage that came over her as a result of that oath being broken definitely controlled her.
I think one of the reasons that Medea was seen as such a terrifying villain is because of her autonomy. Because typical Greek women are, well, more autonomous than other places in the world, still are very much not autonomous in general.
Right.
So she was autonomous before they got married, even when she betrayed her own father, and that not being controlled by her family is one of the things that is very terrifying to more of a patriarchal society.
And she loses some of that autonomy through marriage as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes back, we see what happens.
So then, do you think this play is a commentary on how important Greek marriage is and supporting the typical hierarchical structure of male-female power dynamics?
Yeah, I think it definitely makes a point about how women need to be controlled, right?
Interesting. Do you have any comments on that, Courtney? Nothing. Yeah, I think that's fascinating because I think from a first read, I was like, oh, Medea, she has so much power over her actions. Like, she is a force to be reckoned with. She's an enchantress. She has all of these plans, and she's able to execute all of them. I mean, she doesn't falter anywhere along the line. She succeeds in her mission. And at first view, I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy. Like, she is a powerful woman, but kind of analyzing it from this perspective and maybe from the cultural perspective at the time, that may not have been the case. I don't know what the intention that Euripides had when he was writing this. What did he try to support? What was he in support of? Did he believe that women should have power? I think those are really interesting questions that this play brings up.
And it's really difficult to say without significant social context as well. Because a lot of these literary works make a point by making comparisons between how characters act here and their situations to the present context. And without a deep understanding of that social context, we can't really say what he was going for.
Interesting.
And I think if you look at Medea's character from really like a modern feminist viewpoint, she's kind of more of the heroine than the villainess.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is very much the definition of a strong female character. Events happen to her. Jason breaks his oath and goes to marry Caruso, but she takes control of that. She reacts to it and then shapes the plot from there. So she commits these villainous acts, but she does so of her own volition, and that's what would make her a hero from some perspectives.
Another example of a literary work that I think we could draw a comparison to that would be My Fair Lady, which is based off Pygmalion, which is related to this text. How initially we see Henry Higgins, Rex Harrison, kind of the hero, and a lot of people watch this play or see the movie and they see him as this this lonely guy who doesn't know how to love, but he finds himself through this play. But we see that the end of that scene actually recently got cut out from Broadway productions, and we just see Eliza leave him and not come back, and people with that ending, I guess, support Eliza more so than Henry Higgins, which was not the intention of the author when this play was initially written, which is pretty different.
Yeah, that is really interesting because I don't know, at least for me, I came out of this play and I was like, so Medea, she's not only powerful, but I kind of support her actions. What do you guys think? Do you think she was supposed to be seen as this evil villain, or maybe a powerful woman who's challenging structure and societal structures?
I think. Sorry. If you look at it from a modern perspective, she's a bit more of a heroine than a villainess. Maybe not than a villainess, but a bit more of a heroine than she would be in the ancient Greek cultural context, where she's murdering her children and doing all of these awful things, and she's doing it because her husband is doing something for her, even if he is divorcing her and breaking his oath. But he's doing it for her gain.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you for watching our presentation.
We had a great time.
I hope you did too.